We start with some breaking news at this hour. An Amber Alert was issued for a 6-year-old boy out of Rathdrum, Idaho. Authorities are looking for Leo Isidore Heibel Cloutier. He was last seen Sunday morning at the Super One grocery store in Rathdrum. He is believed to be with his non-custodial mother, 35-year-old Mimi Charmaine Heibel. Police say they may also be traveling with 16-year-old Jean Heibel. Police said they may be headed toward Oklahoma or Nevada. If you have any information, you are urged to call 911. Good afternoon and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News First at 4. I'm Mark Hanrahan, joined by my colleagues Tom Sherry here in the studio and our Whitney Ward, who is broadcasting from home. Whitney?
Good evening, both of you. We will, of course, continue to monitor that Amber Alert. In the meantime, Spokane police tonight are responding under increasing pressure about the recent arrest of a man here in Spokane. This happened back in March, who was restrained using the same type of neck restraint as was used in the George Floyd death. And we do want to warn you, the video you're about to see, for some, may be hard to watch.
On the ground now.
Details are still emerging, but here's what we know right now. This arrest happened 3 months ago on March 2nd at Riverfront Park. You can see the Spokane officers kneeling over the suspect with what appears to be one officer's knee on the man's neck. In fact, at one point, the suspect tells the police to get off of his neck, and the officer adjusts his position.
Ow, please get off my head. Ow. What did I do to you, damn it?
At the time, officers were responding to a park ranger who had called for police assistance after saying he was fighting with a man, but it's still unclear exactly what started that confrontation in the first place.
I can't breathe.
You're fine, you can breathe.
SPD says prone cuffing, where officers apply pressure with their knee or shin to a suspect's back, shoulder, or neck, is a commonly used and approved arrest tactic.
Stop. You're going to end up back face down into the pavement if you keep resisting. Stop.
In this case, the department says it was used for approximately 1 minute while officers got control of the situation. SPD says it was a total of 3 minutes from when officers arrived to when the suspect was then moved to an upright seated position.
Sit up.
Ow. 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 Ow.
Now today, SPD said in light of the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, the department is sensitive to the fear, anger, and confusion over the pictures and the narrative. Authorities say this incident is now under investigation and is a top priority. Now, we do know the suspect in the video that you just saw was eventually charged with a crime. Again, SPD saying that this incident is under investigation. They say they trust this investigative process and will wait until those results to make any further action. So Washington State Patrol tonight is apologizing for that comment that a trooper made during a protest in Seattle. It was caught on camera. It's now been viewed more than 1 million times on Twitter. WSP is now saying it was a poor choice of words. The person who took this video hopes State Patrol will now look to the community for direction on how they can improve.
That is the wording that was used at a protest where the protests have been violence against black and brown people. That's the problem. And I don't think it sends the right message to the rest of the unit, who maybe many of them want to be peaceful in that police unit. But when you say hit them hard, how else are we supposed to take that if we hear it other than hit them, not push them back or move them back safely?
And in the meantime, Governor Jay Inslee has now called for a full investigation. Happening this Sunday, local organizers once again preparing for another demonstration here in Spokane in protest of the death of George Floyd. Authorities say they are aware of this event and they plan to allow those organizers, of course, to continue to exercise their rights as long as that event does remain nonviolent. So an online event which is being organized by Occupy Spokane already has 900 people who have said that they will be in attendance. That event is expected to start at 2 p.m. again on Sunday.
Amazing grace.
As family, friends, and civil rights leaders paid tribute to George Floyd. Regina Ahn joins us now with more on the emotional memorial for the George Floyd. Regina?
Well, Tom, the nation watched as loved ones honored the life of George Floyd. The service follows a night of mostly peaceful protests around the country, and after new charges were brought against the former police officers connected to his death.
It's time for us to stand up in George's name and say, get your knee off our necks.
That was Reverend Al Sharpton, who you just saw eulogize Floyd, whose life was tragically cut short last week at the hands of police. Today's service was held at North Central University in downtown Minneapolis. It's just one of several memorials to be held across the country. Family members shared touching memories about the father of two.
All these people came to see my brother, and that's amazing to me that he touched so many people's hearts.
When he would wrap his arms around you, you would just feel like, everything could just go away.
Floyd's death has touched off massive demonstrations across the country and around the world. It's been a rallying cry for police reform from coast to coast. Floyd's family says the officers' arrests are only the first step towards justice. They say they will continue to call for their convictions. And Floyd's body will now be flown to North Carolina, where he was born, for a public viewing and a private family service Saturday. There will be a large service Tuesday in Houston, where he grew up. And North Central University has now established a scholarship in Floyd's honor. Live in the newsroom tonight, Regina on KREM 2 News.
Well, we have seen images of terrible riots and destruction throughout the past few days, but the peaceful protesters have helped educate us and bring us signs of hope, including this one from Texas.
Don't say that, okay? We're here to protect you. We're not here to hurt you at all. Okay? You can protest, you can march, you can do whatever you want. Just don't break nothing.
This 5-year-old went to a protest with her parents when an officer saw her crying and came over. The girl's dad took this video and said he comforted her and reassured her that she was going to be okay. The conversation doesn't end here. For more information about the George Floyd protest, you can text protest to 509-448-2000, and we will send you a link with more information. Mark?
Tom, thank you very much. Turning to news regarding coronavirus now. Health experts in North Idaho say they've identified what they call community spread in 2 new counties. That means health officials are not able to determine where or how the people contracted the virus. And this comes as Idaho has been slowly reopening its economy. Our Taylor Vito looked into if North Idaho is flattening the curve.
I don't think it's a time to really let down our guard.
The message from health experts: don't give up. State leaders have said that social distancing measures are working in the fight against coronavirus. But since last week, Panhandle Health has reported 18 new cases in the 5 northern counties.
Does this tell us anything?
I think we just need to continue to be vigilant. Everything's reopening and we're all, starting to go out more, see our friends and family.
And new tonight, the health district says they've detected community spread in both Bonner and Benoit counties. Community spread happens when someone becomes sick and they didn't travel or didn't come into contact with a sick person. So health experts aren't able to pinpoint how they became infected. You'll recall that Benoit County went a couple of months without any coronavirus cases before reporting its first case just under 2 weeks ago. There are now 7 cases there, Panhandle Health says. The developments come as Idaho has progressed with its plan to reopen its economy. And Panhandle Health says with each stage of the reopening plan, more cases have been reported.
That's what we've been seeing a correlation to, is the reopening. People maybe are feeling a little more comfortable, a little more relaxed, and maybe aren't practicing that physical distancing and the mask wearing as much as they should be.
Governor Brad Little has said that a spike in coronavirus cases in a particular area could result in restrictions being put back in place for that specific area. But here's the thing. Panhandle Health points out that there haven't been any deaths in the 5 northern counties. And of the 10 people who have been hospitalized, none were put on ventilators.
So we haven't really seen a severe case in our area.
The health district says they believe it would take more than just an increase of cases alone to cause restrictions to come back. In other words, Governor Little would take additional factors into account.
Do we feel that North Idaho is flattening the curve in a sense?
I wouldn't say our curve is flattened in North Idaho, but I do think our community is doing an awesome job of slowing the virus. You know, we may not be able to stop it completely, and that's not really the goal, but the goal is to slow it and to protect our most vulnerable population.
As of Thursday, there are 97 total cases in the 5 northern counties, but over 70% of those people are no longer being monitored. Taylor Vito, KREM 2 News.
New within the hour, Governor Jay Inslee is stressing the importance of more coronavirus testing in Washington. Inslee said at the start of the pandemic, testing supplies were limited, but as of May, the state has received 2/3 of testing supplies that had been promised by the federal government. Inslee and Secretary of Health John Weissman are now encouraging anyone with even mild symptoms to get tested.
Our goal is to get all people who are experiencing symptoms consistent with COVID-19 tested as soon as possible, and ideally within 24 hours of developing symptoms. And that's because, as the governor said, we know that the infectious period of this and the infection rate can really be prevalent at the beginning of the infection, sometimes even before people have symptoms. So it's really important that people quickly go ahead and get in and get tested.
As of today, nearly 384,000 people have been tested for the coronavirus, and of those, less than 6% came back positive. The governor also addressed reopening the state, saying at least 7 counties have now submitted applications to move on to phase 3. That includes Ferry, Stevens, and Pend Oreille counties.
All right, let's take a break from some of the top headlines and talk about weather. It turned out to be another beautiful day outside. Tom, I got to ask you, though, there's a lot of pollen out. I've noticed that my allergies are starting to kick up now. What is it that's out in the air starting to circulate right now that's just making me nuts?
Yeah, from the last reports I saw, it looks like we've got tree pollen, which no surprise there, that is registering moderate, and mold spores are measuring moderate, but we're still not seeing much in the weed or grass category yet. But again, that can all change. And just kind of, since you asked about the pollen, we see a lot of that pine tree pollen, all of the yellow film everywhere. Surprisingly, pine tree pollen, according to most experts, causes very few allergy symptoms. It's the other trees and possibly mold spores that are causing folks some allergies. But I'm suffering just the way you are, just along with you. 70 degrees right now, blue sky and sunshine with a few high clouds. As you can see, wind is out of the west-southwest at 15 miles an hour. Look for mostly clear skies tonight with an overnight low of 49. We'll look for rain to develop tomorrow, but the daytime hours are going to be warm with a high of 77, but rain developing late Friday. That's because a cold front is headed our way and big changes for the weekend. Windy with showers, especially in the overnight and early morning hours on Saturday, a high of 65. We've got about a 40% chance of more rain on Sunday at times, and a daytime high of only 63, well below the average high of 71. I'll check your 7-day forecast coming up in a few minutes.
All right, sounds good, Tom. Thank you very much. Still to come tonight, protesters in New Zealand are also continuing to protest and contribute to Black Lives Matter and that movement. They performed a traditional dance outside of the U.S. consulate. So tonight we leave you with those sights and sounds, and we'll be right back.